We have some really interesting news out of OpenAI specifically about ChatGPT, as it is racking up some crazy downloads on iOS, but at the same time, it might actually be seeing some slowing revenue growth. So today on the podcast, we're going to be diving into everything that is happening with ChatGPT, their mobile milestones, and kind of where the future of ChatGPT is, where we believe it will see it grow the most, and where we think it might be in a bit of trouble. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Welcome to the world's #1 AI podcast, AI Chat. I'm your host, Jaden Schaefer. Make sure that you go to aibox.ai, link in the show notes, to join the waitlist for our new AI platform. We're going to be launching an incredible platform that allows you to build anything you want with workflows in AI. So you're able to chain together ChatGPT and image generators and audio generators to make really powerful apps for your organization, or you can host them on our marketplace and actually generate royalties from them. So make sure to go to aibox.ai and join the waitlist. In addition, if you like the podcast, if you could do me a massive favor and please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. This helps me be able to get better guests on here as they check the reviews to see how you guys are liking it. So if you could please do that, I would really, really appreciate it. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? I record and publish podcasts on a platform called Spotify for Podcasters, and I absolutely love it. Essentially, you can upload from your phone or computer, and it distributes to every platform that plays podcasts. They support video podcasts, and you can make money on the platform with ads or even podcast subscriptions, something that has made my life so much easier as a podcaster. So if you're interested, I highly recommend you give it a try. You can download the Spotify for Podcast app or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your podcast today. The mobile landscape for AI chatbots, I think right now is kind of witnessing a whole whirlwind of activity. ChatGPT, of course, is the leading contender in the whole arena. And I think it has given the market both, some very positive things and also some areas where we're a little bit concerned. So first off, let's start with the good. So ChatGPT's momentum in mobile, I think, can't be overlooked. In September alone, the platform had around 15.6 million downloads. This was, record-breaking for them. And this is across its iOS and Android apps worldwide. Now, one thing I will mention here that I think is kind of noteworthy in this kind of uptick in downloads. I, for one, am an avid ChatGPT user. I use it, every single day, every workday at least, probably less so on the weekends. But I have not used it on my phone up until recently. First off, I have an Android, so it wasn't available for a while on Android when they just did iOS. And so I think the fact that they're kind of breaking new records right now, a big part of this could just be with, having the Android app. And now I know this is a couple months old, but still, I think it's probably picking up steam. There was a whole bunch of knockoff Android apps before that were kind of on the market that were it's called AI chat app and a bunch of random things, and I think that those got a lot of just traction. A lot of people downloaded them. They were ranking in the top charts, and they were literally they just had the API to OpenAI. So it was literally just ChatGPT. They were just trying to get you to pay more for it on Android. In any case, eventually, of course, ChatGPT came out with their actual app and kind of squashed this a little bit. And but the interesting thing was, as soon as they came out, they weren't instantly ranked the #1 AI chat app because they'd taken a few months and they'd given these other companies time to get tons of reviews, tons of traction, tons of downloads, kind of build their portfolio and their profile on the Android App Store and the Google Play Store or whatever. And it was kind of hard for OpenAI, I think, for a moment to kind of edge their way up. So I think by now, OpenAI has kind of broken through. They're probably viewed as the top, the actual ChatGPT app. And now that I think they have that spot on iOS and Android, they're probably getting a lot more of those downloads. Because honestly, of those 15 million downloads, I'm sure you could go to a handful of knockoff ChatGPT apps on Android and they'll have 5 million downloads each. So, or maybe more, maybe 10. It's kind of crazy. In any case, I think that this definitely contributes to them kind of breaking their own record with that 15 million downloads last month. I think this takes its lifetime tally to around 52.2 million downloads total on their app, as this is according to data from market intelligence company App Figures. I think notably Google Play was kind of the dominant force driving this trend, accounting for about 9 million of the September downloads, with Apple's App Store having about 6.6 million. And again, this could just be because, they held out longer for Android. And so now Android's kind of just catching up to what Apple was doing. And in addition, I'm sure this is really popular for quite a global audience. Of course, a lot of people in India, I have found, statistically use Androids, and there's a huge population there that is very interested in AI, what's going on here. So I think that will contribute to the Android app becoming very popular. I think furthermore, the AI chatbot didn't stop at just amassing downloads. It also celebrated a high in terms of gross revenue. So it raked in around $4.6 million across its apps globally. The growth narrative for ChatGPT kind of started off robust with gross revenue at about 2.1 million in June, and then went up to 2.7 million in July, then 3.8 million in August, and finally it hit 4.5 million in September. So let's talk about some things that might not be so good. A couple areas of concern that ChatGPT and OpenAI are probably experiencing right now. So I think while gross revenue figures might paint a picture of, this company that's a rocket ship, it's got an unstoppable ascent, I think a deeper dive kind of reveals the onset of perhaps a potential storm, right? So the platform's revenue growth rate, which had been sizzling at 31% in July, and it was even hotter in August at 39%, it hit about 20% in September. So it definitely slowed down. I think this deceleration may hint at ChatGPT kind of approaching its saturation point when it comes to mobile users and what they're willing to spend for their premium ChatGPT Plus subscription. It's priced at about $20 a month. And essentially, when you get ChatGPT Plus, it just gives you faster response times, priority usage during peak usage hours, and a first look at some of the fresh features and enhancements that they add. So if you want to be in line to if you want to be the first person to get the new features, if you want it to be a little bit faster, and if you want to get, priority during peak usage hours, which, to be honest, I think is a good value add. Like, I remember using ChatGPT when it was like at the peak of its hype, and I was just on the free account, and it'd be like, sorry, we're kind of maxed out, try again later. And you just like hit refresh on your question. And it was kind of a bummer. And so I upgraded to ChatGPT Plus and have never had that problem since. Maybe the usage also is down. But in any case, I use it every day. I use it for work. Like, I need it to work exactly when I need it. I need answers immediately. I don't want to wait. I want it as fast as possible. So for me, this is like a no-brainer, and it's a great price. I'm happy to pay. Let's look at the broader landscape. So I think there are some surprises in the kind of broader AI chatbot space. So for instance, despite ChatGPT's really impressive numbers, it's not the revenue kingpin. So that actually, the title for that actually goes to Ask AI, which is another player in the space, which despite a slight dip in September to 5.1 million, has outpaced ChatGPT thanks in part to its really aggressive ad spend. So in contrast, another competitor called Genie and also AI Chat Smith haven't actually managed to grow as large as Ask AI, so those ones are not there. But it's really interesting to see that someone essentially made a knockoff, ChatGPT. They probably, like on Android, took advantage of the fact that they weren't on Android immediately, and they were able to get up to $5.5 million in revenue. Now, like I mentioned before, they have spent very aggressively on advertising, so I wouldn't be surprised if, let's say they spent that $5 million just straight on ads. But what that does is it allows them to grow really big. Like I mentioned earlier, they are seen as an authority in the App Store. They get a ton of reviews, a ton of downloads, a ton of people using them. And when people already are using them and kind of like them, they may not even feel the need to switch to ChatGPT. So even if, let's say, they spend $5 million in September, they get $5 million in revenue. Well, next month, because this is a monthly fee, they might be actually outpacing that. And in addition, that's a ton of people that have it on their phone. And if it's a good user experience, they'll just tell their friends like, hey, go download Ask AI instead of telling them to go download ChatGPT. So, may have been a really good move by Ask AI to be very aggressive on this at the beginning. I think, however, when you take into account net revenue, the tables might actually turn, especially considering Ask AI's ad expenses. So as for ChatGPT, it had nearly $3.2 million in September post the deductions by Apple and Google and in-app purchases, right? So of course, the $4 million that they made or whatever is impressive, but Apple and Google take 30% of your revenue if you make more than $1 million a year. If you make less than that, I have some apps on the App Store that make less than $1 million a year. in total revenue. And so I applied for like a kind of like a small business thing where they only take 15% of your revenue, right? Compared to like a credit card processor that takes 3%, the 15% still kind of hurts sometimes. But, definitely not as bad as 30%. This is something that's been very contentious. Spotify is like upset because Spotify is a massive company and, Apple is essentially milking them for 30% of all their in-app purchase revenue and then launches a competitor, which is Apple Music. So, that's got some antitrust stuff written all over it, I feel like. But in any case, I think regional dynamics are important in this whole conversation. So the AI chatbot app market also has its geographical preferences. So while Google Play may be driving ChatGPT's downloads, the App Store is where the money's at. It contributes $3 million of the total in-app purchases in September. Regionally, the US emerges as the AI chatbot's, biggest fan, accounting for around 60% of the revenue. And this is another thing that I have seen in my own apps on the App Store again, right? So let's play that back, right? The App Store on iOS was $3 million of the total in-app purchases in September of their 4-point-something million. So if that's significant, right? And I think this is what I've seen as well. iOS always pays a lot more. I think it's part of it is just people that have iPhones spent a lot more on their phones. They're willing to spend a proportionately higher amount on the software. They're also usually from a higher, a higher salaried demographic than Android users. A lot of Android users are from other countries that don't have less wealth than America, for example. So I think that's just something that's to be very expected. I think for me, it's something like 60 or probably 70% of all revenue I make from apps, even if they're apps on both iOS and Android, 70% of the revenue is always going to be from Apple. That's just what I always find. So I think that while, ChatGPT's mobile journey is definitely a story of massive downloads and then significant revenue milestones, the emerging trend of slowing revenue growth is something that I think we're going to want to watch out for. Only time is going to tell if this is just a blip or if this is kind of a sign of things to come and the revenue has permanently slowed. We'll definitely be following the story.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Thank you for listening to the AI Chat Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, I'd appreciate it if you rate me wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're looking for an innovative group of AI enthusiasts, make sure you check out our Discord channel and also our Facebook community. It's obviously a lot more interactive than a podcast where we can actually share software tools, prompts that we're using in everyday AI. I'll leave a link for those in the description below.